She is an author of several novels. She is my friend. She is a graduate of Yale. She is an attorney. And she's running to be your next governor for the state of Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Y'all are a good-looking crowd. I want to say thank you to Pastor Williams for opening up the sanctuary. His church is nonpartisan. I don't have problems like that. But thank you so much. My friend Kim Alexander was very kind in her introduction, but I want to be very clear because sometimes things get confusing. My name is Stacey Abrams, and I intend to be the next governor of Georgia. When I first became the Democratic leader in 2010, it was at a dark time for Democrats. We just lost every statewide election. We lost the Senate to a supermajority. The day I became the Democratic leader, people switched parties. A couple of them voted for me before they left, but they still left. And we were at our nadir. We were at that bottom. We were at that place where you're told you can't ever get up again. But I knew better. You see, I'm Mississippi raised, but I am Georgia grown, and I know things grow in the darkness. I know things grow when there seems like nothing else is possible. And so I spent that first year as Democratic leader fighting Republicans to block them from doing terrible things. But I also spent that time working with them to save the Hope Scholarship, to save pre-K, to do the work we needed to do to save all of Georgia. And I went through my first redistricting session, that first session every 10 years where we changed the map of Georgia, where politicians decide to pick their voters instead of letting voters pick their politicians. Well, I went through my first redistricting session, and I actually made a little bit of a reputation for myself, because as leader, we have been taught to try to corral people and cajole people and convince people. But I had friends who were going behind all of our backs and having whispered conversations with the Republicans so they could pick the voters they wanted. And so I had a meeting with all of my colleagues. We were in an auditorium not unlike this. And I said to all of them very clearly, I said, look, if a single one of you votes for a map that discriminates against a single person in Georgia, I will personally recruit someone to run against you, and I will pay for it myself. Now, I said it in front of most of the folks in my caucus, but there are some people who weren't there, so I wrote it down, and I sent it as an email. And surprisingly, it found its way into the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And they expected me to disavow it, to say I didn't say it. I said, not only did I say it, I meant it. And as a Democratic leader, I led our caucus to, for the first time in Georgia history, a unanimous opposition to a map that was going to discriminate against Georgia. I tell you that story because I set myself up. Because the Republicans, they got the map they wanted. And they were looking around the state of Georgia. They were trying to figure out how they could give themselves 124 seats out of 180 in the state of Georgia. And as they did so, they looked at Paulding County and they looked at Douglas County and they said, we can give ourselves an extra seat here. So they drew those lines so they could carve out just another extra Republican seat. And I looked at the maps and I saw what they saw, but I saw something they didn't see. You see, they were looking at likely voters. They were looking at the folks who always show up. But I knew a secret. I know about unlikely voters. I know about the people who get counted out and overlooked and ignored, who are just waiting for somebody to see them and say, this is your state, this is your town, this is your time. I believed in a part of Georgia that folks thought belonged to them, and I said, no, it doesn't belong to you and it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people of Douglas County. It belongs to the people of Paulding County. And so I went out and I started recruiting. And I said, let me find somebody who can speak the language of the people. Someone who understands who we are and where we can go. And I found Kim Alexander. And Kim and I made an agreement. She'll tell you. I actually made her sign a contract. And the contract said she would knock on doors and she would walk and she would work. But if she would work with me and we worked together, we would take that seat back and give it back to the people of Paulding County, the people of Douglas County, and we did it. We got outspent 10 to 1. She got outworked by no one. And Kim Alexander became one of 4 folks that stopped the Republicans from ever having a supermajority in the House of Representatives in the state of Georgia. That's what we were able to do. That's what we were able to do. And over the next 7 years, I found some additional friends. Not only did we get Kim Alexander, we took 4 seats back from Republicans because they counted out you folks. They didn't believe you existed. They looked at their numbers, but they didn't look at the people behind the numbers. And in June of 2017, when I decided to stand for governor, I looked behind the numbers and I saw every single one of you, because I know our path to victory is not through the likely, it's through the unlikely, but the ones who deserve to have the state lead them. That's why I'm running to be the next governor of Georgia. That's why I'm doing this. Because I know that unlikely voters are the ones who need a governor who believes in educating their children from cradle to career, who know that you shouldn't pay a college tuition for a 2-year-old to go to daycare. And I'm the only candidate not only with a plan for it, but a plan we can pay for without raising a single tax. And I know that I am sick and tired of education governors. They have commissions to study the commissions that study the commission. We know the answer. Pay our teachers, educate our children, respect our community. That's how we win. That's how we get this done. And I'm the only candidate with a plan to make sure we take care of our teachers, and not just a gimmick for an election year, but making sure they get a competitive salary every year and a retirement that they can count on. I'm the only candidate willing to promise that. But I'm also running because I'm tired of watching the state of Georgia steal money from public schools to put them in private schools. My opponent not only wants to steal $100 million, he wants to double down and make it $200 million. But I'd rather spend that money on making sure that our children who come to school on Monday aren't starving because the last time they ate was Friday afternoon. I want to spend that money on counselors, so our children are on the school to success pipeline, not the school to prison pipeline. And I want to arm our teachers, but we're not going to arm them with anything other than resources. We don't put a single gun in the classroom. That's why I'm running to be the next governor of Georgia. That's why we're doing this. I want to make sure that we create 22,000 apprenticeships for folks who are graduating from our high schools but not going to our colleges. Because you don't have to go to college to be successful. And when I said I wanted 22,000 by 2022, some folks scoffed at me. They were like, that seems like too many. We've got 8,000 in Georgia, aren't we doing okay? Well, South Carolina's got 17,000. I don't know about you, but South Carolina's not about to beat Georgia in anything. We're going to create 22,000 of them because those are 22,000 good jobs that will be right here in Georgia. But I also want to make sure that technical colleges go back to being free for everyone who needs that education. And again, it doesn't require that we change our tax structure, it just requires that we change our imaginations. Because we have to have technical colleges not only for those coming out of school, but we've got to have a technical college for those whose jobs are leaving town and they need to get re-educated. You shouldn't have to give up your life to get a new job. And I'm the only candidate with a plan to make that so. I have a plan to make sure that we create Hope 2.0. I want to keep the Hope Scholarship that we have, and I fought hard to save it in 2011, but Hope has always had a little bit of a flaw.
Come on now.
It's always said you have to have a B to be successful. Now, I don't know about you, but I come from a family of strong C's and some D's doing the best they can. And Georgia's one of only 2 states in the nation that does not offer need-based aid. That's why we have a school gap, a college completion gap, where 9,000 students on average drop out of college because they can't afford to stay. We can't afford to have them leave, and that's why we're going to create Hope 2.0 when I'm the next governor of Georgia. But we've also got to build a thriving and diverse economy in all 159 counties. I'm as proud of Atlanta as anybody else. I live there. But I'm not running to be the governor of Atlanta. I'm running to be the governor of Georgia. The governor in Paulding County, the governor in Douglas County, the governor in Spalding County, the governor in Worth County, the governor of all of Georgia. Because Douglas County knows good and well that you guys have an extraordinary opportunity that's lying fallow because you haven't had a governor who sees the possibility. I see Douglas County and I know what you're capable of. And I want to help 5,000 small businesses across Georgia create 10 new jobs each. Because yeah, we can bring 50,000 jobs from Amazon, but if we invest in the creation of 10 new jobs and 5,000 small businesses, those are 50,000 jobs that never leave Georgia. That's why I'm running to be our next governor. But we can build a thriving and diverse economy. We can invest in agriculture and in hospitality, but we can also invest in renewable energy. We can invest in tech and biotech. We can solve the problems of tomorrow and use the brains of Georgia to get it done. But we cannot do it if we don't believe in investing in our own people. I'm the only candidate who talks about small businesses in terms of giving access to capital. You see, I believe that you can put money into our small businesses and watch them grow, because I know what it feels like to not have someone invest. My business partner and I had a business. We were in hospitals, we were in airports. We actually got a massive contract from a major grocery store, but we needed $75,000. And we went from bank to credit union to factoring company, and they told us no, not because they didn't believe in our idea, but because we didn't fit the model of what they thought a good business would look like. They weren't used to two women running a manufacturing company, and our idea was different. And even though we had an invoice worth twice the amount of money we needed, we lost that contract because we grew to death, because no one would invest so we could scale up and do a little bit more. Well, my business partner, we sold for about a month, and then we started a new company called Now Account, and we have now helped create or retain more than 2,000 jobs across the state of Georgia, getting access to capital to small businesses. And if I can do that as an entrepreneur, imagine what I can do as the governor of Georgia. That's why I'm running. But I also know that the private sector and the public sector have to work together. That's why I want to create a $10 million small business financing fund where we backstop some banks to say, go ahead and take a risk, we've got you. Help this company add the $20,000 they need to buy new equipment, we got you. When I suggested this, my opponent in this race scoffed at my idea. He said it wasn't right for the taxpayers to foot the bill, that anyone who needed a loan could just go to a bank. Now, let's be clear. I knew at the time he said that my opponent had borrowed $500,000 that he refuses to pay back. But what I just learned this week is that he also borrowed $3.6 million from all of you through the federal stimulus program. If it's okay for Brian Kemp to borrow money from the state, why isn't it okay for the rest of Georgia? You tell me that. I believe if it's right for Brian Kemp, it's right for Georgia. You deserve access to capital. But we can build a thriving and diverse economy. We can do the work to educate our children from cradle to career. But none of it matters if we don't solve the fundamental crisis that is crippling our state, and that is healthcare. And that is why my first responsibility the day I become governor of Georgia is the expansion of Medicaid in the state of Georgia. That's what we're gonna do. Medicaid expansion is basic. 33 states have accepted the money. And they accepted it because they knew it was their money. It's your money. $8 million a day we send to Kentucky and Indiana and Ohio and Connecticut, Massachusetts and Rhode Island and Michigan. States that are getting our money because we have leaders who are too mean and too cheap to take the money. And because of that, we have 500,000 Georgians, most of whom are working poor, who are being told you're too rich to get health insurance. We have 21 hospitals that are about to join the critical list and lose the funding they need, and those are counties that are going to go down without opportunity. And we could solve that problem by simply accepting the money. You don't have to raise taxes to raise expectations. We can take our money right now and change the future of Georgia. Are you with me? Are you with me? Are you with me? We can do this, Georgia. We can take the money and we can change our future and we can make ourselves a stronger state. We can be a state that believes in Medicaid expansion, not just for our bodies, not just for our economy, but for our minds. Because Medicaid expansion is also about mental health care in the state of Georgia. Because one of the tragedies of Georgia, one of the tragedies of the South, is that the single largest provider of mental health care isn't the hospital, it's the prison system. And for me, this is personal. I have a younger brother. I'm the second of 6 children. My older sister is an anthropologist. I have a sister who's a judge, a brother who's a social worker, a sister who's an evolutionary biologist. And then we've got our brother Walter. And y'all are laughing because you either know a Walter or you were a Walter. You see, Walter's bright. Walter went to Morehouse College. But my brother dropped out of college before his senior year because his addiction to drugs was stronger than his ambition to become a lawyer. And he wandered for 14 years until he wound up in prison. And it was there we found out Walter's not just a drug addict who's been in and out of rehab, and he's not just a bad man who committed crimes to support his habit. My brother is bipolar. And he likely has been bipolar since he was 16, but he was in a school system that didn't have mental health professionals. And so they just thought he was another bad kid. And my parents didn't have the language, our communities lacked the language to understand mental illness. We didn't know what it was. They knew to keep him in his college prep classes, but we didn't have health insurance anyway. But we know in our communities we don't talk enough about mental health. We don't talk about the fact that good people make bad mistakes because they need some help. I'm running for governor. I'm running for governor because I know when Walter gets out of prison, he loses his health care. And they tell him, well, get a good job. You can get health care through your employer. But no one's going to hire you when you have a record. And they say, well, get a good place to live and stay away from those bad influences. But no one's going to rent you an apartment when your last address was a state penitentiary. And so Walter relapses and he reoffends and he goes through the recidivism cycle, and no amount of love and care from my parents and from his brothers and sisters can fix a broken system. But you know who can? The next governor of Georgia. The next governor of Georgia can fix a broken system. I've spent 7 years working with Nathan Deal on criminal justice reform, and I will spend 8 more until we get it right and get it done. Because Georgia doesn't have to be a state of retribution. We can be a state of redemption, and that is why I'm running to be the next governor of Georgia. That's what we're going to do. We are going to do this. But I can't do it alone. I'm voting for me. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad y'all all agreeing. Okay. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If I could get elected in this room, I would be excited. But there are 159 counties. And we've got millions of folks who aren't in this room with us. They need to know what you know. They need to feel what you feel. And they need to believe what you believe. And so I need you to do 2 things for me. Charlie Bailey needs you to do 2 things for us. William Bodie and Sharon Beasley Teague and Kim Alexander, we need you to do 2 things for us. Your new solicitor needs you to do 2 things. The first one is vote early. Say vote early. I need you to cast your ballots now. Go tomorrow morning, get up and go and cast your ballots. Vote early. Because we've got to bank our votes, because we know not all is right in Nottingham. There's some problems in the system. Some bugs are in the system. But if we vote early, we can get those bugs figured out, and we can take some names off of the list so that by the time we get to election day, we're just batting cleanup. Because we didn't know what was going on in Gwinnett until people started voting early. And we wouldn't have known about the 53,000 if the AP hadn't done their research, and they can vote early so we can figure it out. And there are hundreds of thousands of folks who may be in jeopardy, but they won't know unless they vote early and give us time to fix it. So you gotta do what for me? I need you to vote early, even if you normally vote on election day. You've done it that way for 50 years. This is 51. Vote early. Make a plan to vote early. Because I got something else for you to do. Number 2, I need you to volunteer hard. Say volunteer hard. I need you to vote early because on the next day, I need you to go and volunteer and find 2 more people and take them to the polls. And 2 more after that. And 2 more after that for the next 17 days until we have filled the polling places to the rafters and filled those boxes with our votes and we have won this election. Because they're not counting on you, but I am. Because I know who's in this room. You know everyone in this community. You know those streets that nobody drives down. Because you speed up a little bit yourself. I need you to stop your car and get out and go talk to someone. I need you to knock on doors of strangers, people you don't think share your experiences, but they do share your dreams. And I need you to knock on those doors and call those folks that you're mad at, that you broke up with, that you owe money to. I need you to call everyone you know and then folks they know. Because that's how we win this election. We win this election by being more committed than they are. We win this election by talking to the woman who doesn't think anyone sees her special needs child, and I need you to tell her that Governor Abrams has that child on her mind and has a plan for that child's future. I need you to go and find that senior citizen who is about to be moved to a nursing home because her family can't afford in-home health care and tell her with Governor Abrams we will draw down the Medicaid expansion dollars so she can have an in-home health care service and she can stay in her community for a few more years. I need you to find that woman who wants to start a little shop and that man who wants to expand his business and tell them Governor Abrams has a plan and with your help that plan will become a reality, but it only happens if you volunteer hard. Say volunteer hard. I need you to help me turn out the votes because this is not a contest of miles. It is a contest of inches. And if you doubt me, look at how hard they're working to stop you from voting. Let's put it this way. We are in Georgia in 2018. And in October, a black woman is in a dead heat for the next governor of Georgia. Before anyone gets upset, yes, I am going to be the first black woman to be a governor in the history of the United States. But I don't want anyone to vote for me because I'm black. And I don't want anyone to vote for me because I'm a woman. But I want you to know because I'm a black woman, I've overcome a lot of stuff and I know how to get it done. I know how to get this done. And I don't want anybody to vote for me because of what I look like. They should vote for me because I am better than anyone who's ever stood for this office. That's why I should be the next governor of Georgia. But I need your help to get it done. I need you to get to your feet because we got to do something. It is our voices that will change Georgia. Say our voices. Our voices. It is our votes that will change Georgia. Say our votes. Our votes. This is our time. Say it, Georgia. It's our time. Our time, Douglas County. Say it's our time. And these are our voices. Our votes. Our time. Our voices. Our votes. Our time. Because we are Georgia. We are Georgia. We are Georgia. So let's get it done. Thank you so much.
Go now to dryerbuzz.com and follow @dryerbuzz on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
You are definitely a spiritually filled, thinking woman, and that is what we've been lacking in our community.
Go now to dryerbuzz.com and follow @dryerbuzz on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. It's all about the buzz.